Hello, everybody. The Nameless Narcissist here once again. A simple man diagnosed with NPD, trying to talk about narcissistic personality disorder and what goes on in my head. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you don't tell me because it'll hurt my feelings. Keep in mind I'm no clinician, so I can only speak to my own experiences. But, I'm still smart. Throw me a bone. Anyways, so what are we talking about? Kids, children. We all love them, make them, admire them sometimes. I don't know. Because I read this thing on Quora, and it was like very. Sometimes I go on Quora either to laugh or be kind of take a weird pride in like, oh yeah, I'm fucking master manipulator over here, or just like emotional self harm. It's one of those three, basically always. Same with some of like the narcissistic abuse subreddits and stuff like that. But they said something about kids and how like narcissists take kids, blah blah blah, and I'm like, fucking what? Because this is at a huge juxtaposition from what I've experienced. And before the stream, me and Cluster B Milkshake had a interesting conversation about it where we had very aligning thoughts about kids. I'm going to get into those in a second. But also, Quora sucks. Please don't get information from Quora. Like, Eleanor Greenberg used to write some really good stuff on there, but she's dead now, which is sad, basically, because she was the only people who treated people with NPD fairly. She actually said that some of her favorite patients were people with NPD. Isn't that interesting? And she like acknowledged that there was a lot of diversity in how NPD can present. We're all different, And so, going into this, keep in mind, not all narcissists are the same. Some have higher psychopathic traits, some have higher borderline traits, some just are shitty people. So this might not be everybody's experience. But I've said this before, but like children are like the only thing in the world I have any degree of sympathy for. And it kind of makes sense, right? Because, given how I was treated as a child, I'm probably projecting those feelings I had then onto the children and kind of identifying with them. And a very interesting form of therapy that people will engage in, schema therapy mainly that this happens in, but basically they have a narcissist empathize with their old self, with them as children, as to make some progress. I read this one case study that was really interesting, where like basically they had the patient have a conversation with the therapist, effectively role-playing as them as a kid. And like at first, he was really annoyed by the therapy at first. But when he had that conversation, he was like, it was so funny because the guy was like, oh well, he was like very open to it. He's like, but I'm not keep in mind, I'm probably going to be the hardest case you ever had. Like laughed. I was like, whoa, the grandiosity. That's funny as hell. Anyways, but with kids, like, there is this almost. I have a lot of sympathy towards kids, especially when I see them being mistreated. Like, if I see a kid in public and like the kid's like being scolded or shamed, especially if it's not just or extreme or not proportionate, I sometimes have to remove myself from the situation because I get like so fucking angry at the parent. Like I very rarely have seen somebody hit their kid in public, but I just like see when I see like shame on kids' faces, I'm like, I don't know, I get it, or like the hurt feeling, or them trying to like so desperately, like please their parents, and it's just not working, and they're like ignoring them. Like nothing can piss me off like that. Also animals, but kind of to a lesser degree. Like see one of those videos like fucking people abandoning dogs and shit at the side of the road. I'm like, oh man, my heart felt something for the first time in years. I won't cry or anything, but I'm like, oh shit. And it just, I don't know, it just makes me so mad. And I wonder if that anger also comes from me projecting my parents onto the children's parents. It's like and also, is that a trauma reaction? Am I basically reliving my trauma through these people? Which, interesting thing that Heal NPD brought up is that, remember, trauma being brought up in, like, especially like PTSD and stuff, and the trauma, and like when the trauma actually happened, is indistinguishable in the minds of people with trauma. You kind of see this when people with NPD will have such these visceral reactions when they feel misunderstood or belittled or like shameful and stuff, because what happened to them as kids is now currently happening in the moment with all of the emotions attached. And so maybe when I see kids like that, I am basically reliving my trauma. Damn, I like really just thought about that all off the cusp. I really should have thought of this video better. I should just start talking about something else. But also a thing is with children is, and this is very personal of me, and I know a lot of people don't share this sentiment, but I've kind of made, I'm like, this isn't set in stone for me. It depends what the treatment options are like for NPD in the future. But like this idea that I could bring a kid into the world and like fail them, or worse, make them like someone like me or my sister or my grandma or my parents or literally anybody in my family, is, I can't even tolerate the idea of that. Not only because of the damage that people like me have done, but because of like, I know the suffering that comes with it. And if I had a kid that like, if I brought a kid into the world and like just to suffer like I do, that just doesn't feel just at all. Now, if there's treatment options in the future, because I do want to point out that like, although almost universally, NPD is caused by like childhood abuse, there are cases where like, even if I get healthy enough that I won't be like dismissive of my children's needs, there are cases where like, let's say a war happens, or the kid's being sexually assaulted and nobody knows about it, shit like that, that like can lead to enough trauma to trigger a pathological response to it. So it's not always the parents, but usually it is. Or maybe it's one of the other parents, you know? But like, like, even if I get healthy enough to take care of a kid properly, like, what if something happens? What if something happens that I have no power over? What if my wife is terrible and I don't know it? And what if this kid then develops a personality disorder and I couldn't stop that? And like then they have to live like I did for most of my life. And like, I guess if the treatment options were better then, when I maybe have kids, if I do have kids, then like, then maybe then it would be like worth doing. But to me, at this point in time, it feels like nothing but selfish. I'm just bringing a kid into the world because I want to have a family that loves me unconditionally. And that's not fair to put on a child. I can't expect a child to like take care of me effectively. Like, children need taken care of, and I'm not sure if I can put my own needs aside for that. And you know, that's sad because like as a kid, I always like really, want a family and shit, and for unhealthy reasons, right? But like I recognize now as an adult and having done a lot of self-reflection that like, there's no reason I could have a kid that wasn't inherently selfish. Um, I don't know, what are normal people's motivations for having a kid? Wish I knew. Yeah, so it's just like, what do you want to do? Maybe my thoughts and emotions on this are misguided. But hey, my emotions are more important than your facts. Oh my god, my buddy says that sometimes about me, and I think it's really funny. But and how like what if what if I'm attracted and like I could easily be attracted to like a borderline or something, just increasing the possibility that like once we have children, like shit's gonna be awful. Hell, my grandpa was like married to a borderline and had that borderline with my dad. I mean, had that borderline with my dad. Jesus, um, he him and the borderline had my dad, right? And like, she was like a lovely woman most of the time, and she could control herself pretty well, if she wasn't, if she wasn't drinking, and then like all those things that she's used to cope over the years, because she's trying to fucking fill that emptiness, just go away. And it's weird because it's like she was still trying to fill that up, even though she had so many hobbies. She was a great cook. She would garden. She loved like horror novels and shit. And she would like freak herself out. Once one freaked her out so much that she buried it under a bunch of pillows, which I think is hilarious and honestly like very borderline thing to do in my mind. And then she would get drunk, and she would like once, like I heard this story. My dad never told me it, which is interesting. Where like my grandpa was like holding my dad in the bathroom, and like she would be like fucking trash, and like stabbing through it like The Shining style with a butcher's knife. And like, what if I end up with a wife like that like can present really well, maybe is sober when I meet her, but then like can't, because she tried to get sober a couple times. She actually, funnily enough, she got sober when I was born because she wanted to like, because she like idealized me out the ass. I only have good memories of her. Like whenever my mom actually let me like do anything, she would call it a grandma day just because of how she's fucking spoiled me rotten when she was still alive. Then she died of lung cancer when I was like super young. I don't remember. Like I think I may have been. That was either before my parents' divorce or right after. Yeah, and yeah. So I don't know. I just can't justify it to myself. For some reason, I care about kids too fucking much to entertain the possibility. If I get a girl pregnant on accident, I don't know what the fuck I'll do. I'll be terrified. But whatever. Anyways, hope you have a good day. A little bit emotionally charged this time. Weird. Take your fucking meds.